Right now in the studio, we have BCBA Board Certified Behavior Analyst Evelyn Gould. She joins us at this time on Wednesdays. We're always thrilled to have you here. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
I know how busy you are, and so it's a wonderful thing that you make time for us. And I got a lot of stuff that I want to talk to Evelyn about and some things that I want to visit. But if you have questions for Evelyn, you can be writing them in right now on autism-live.com. If you're watching this show in rebroadcast, please feel free to email us with your questions after the fact, because we'll answer them next week. So in any case, I wanted to talk a little bit about EOs and MOs. It sounds like Muppet characters, doesn't it? EOs and MOs. Ernie and Bert. But these are things that are really important to us. So first of all, tell us what an EO and an MO is. And I want to start by talking about how EOs and MOs can set our children up for challenging behavior, so that as a parent we can start to be smart about this.
Well, when we're using jargony stuff like EOs and MOs, what we're really talking about is motivating variables. So things that can change your motivation for particular things. So like how much you want something or don't want something, or things that have an effect on how likely we are to behave in certain ways. So for example, if you're hungry, that's going to make you much more likely to engage in behaviors that have resulted in you getting food and eating in the past, and you're going to respond to things in your environment. You're going to have stronger responses to things in your environment that are saying, eat me, or I'm really tasty over here, you know. So if you're walking around and you're starving, it's like being in the supermarket when you're hungry and you start noticing all these things that maybe you wouldn't notice or put in your trolley if you weren't hungry. So that's
trolley. Is that what they call it? No, is that what they call a shopping cart?
Yeah, we call it a trolley. A shopping trolley.
I love that. That's so much better than a cart.
So like other examples of motivating variables are thirst as well, like or lack of attention. So if you haven't had attention from someone who normally gives you a lot of attention, then you're more likely to engage in certain behaviors that are going to try and get that attention, meet that need from you. So we see that with kids a lot, you know, if mommy's been busy and has been trying to get stuff done and hasn't really been attending to the child for a while, then perhaps the child's going to be more likely to start doing annoying things to get mommy's attention.
So are you saying, Evelyn, that the period of time in which we're trying to cook dinner and get dinner on the table, and that's the period of time when our child decides to go completely off the rails, that's not a coincidence? No,
it's possible that one of these EOs or MOs are in effect. An MO is a motivating operation. It's a motivating variable, and it's more like an umbrella term for different kinds of MOs. So we have establishing operations and abolishing operations, but we don't need to go into the technicalities of it. Just know that these are like variables that are in the environment, or states, like physical states or whatever in the environment, that can change how you interact with stimuli or things in your environment, and how motivated you are for certain things.
But you know what I just heard you say that I never have gotten before? Like a little switch did just go off my brain. Did you see it? Did you see the little spark? Because you were saying about, and let's see if I got it right though, that things that create circumstances where you're more likely to engage in a behavior to get something that you got before doing this. That's the part that I never heard before, because I always think of it, you know, when somebody hasn't had an opportunity to eat for a long time, they're more likely to be crabby, right? But what I haven't connected together before is that being crabby, that behavior, is something that got you fed before.
Yeah,
that's what I never got before.
So like even in babies, you see that, where babies will start crying because they're hungry, and that results in attention from mom, who is likely to start to recognize different cries.
Yes.
And that's a hungry cry. Here you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the part that I never put together. I always put together, oh, well, if I don't feed my child for hours on end, he's going to get crabby. But I never thought about it before, that he gets crabby because crabby has worked before.
Yeah, it's very much an interaction of usually physical state, so physiological reaction, and also learning experiences in your past.
So when we're thinking about EOs and MOs, and not setting our children up for challenging behavior. What are a couple of things that we can be thinking in terms of so that we're not creating environments in which we're encouraging that?
Right. Well, I mean, let's go back to the hungry thing. We all know that we do get crabby when we're hungry. So it's probably not the best time to ask someone to do something when they either are starving, or they're not able to focus, or they're going to react kind of irritably, or maybe they have a lack of sleep. They're going to find dealing with stuff a lot more challenging. So
what I love about that, what you just said, because I was thinking you were going to say, don't put off feeding your child, right? But sometimes that happens anyway. Sometimes, I mean, we never mean to, but sometimes something happens and you're at a restaurant and it just takes them a long time to get the food out, or you have to get to the place where you're going to buy the food or whatever, or there's just emergency happens and you don't have access and you can't get your child fed until then. And so, great point that when that happens, don't put more demands on.
Right. So, yeah, you want to do two things. I mean, if you're aware of these motivating variables, of course you can manipulate them to your advantage. That's one thing. You can try to avoid them coming about, so trying to make sure your child eats very regularly. Like I have to eat every couple of hours, otherwise I get into a deprived state and get a bit like and can't focus and respond kind of irritably to people. So you can use it to your advantage, but then obviously not always, like you're saying. So being aware that these variables are there, or potentially there, and deciding whether it's a good time to deal with something or not.
This is going to sound incredibly sexist, but it seems like to me, when I'm talking to other moms, this is not always 100% the case, but it seems like to me that moms tend to glom on to the cause and effect of different things in the environment and a reaction with the child quicker than the men do. Not always, but especially when it comes to meals and things like that, and being overtired and stuff like that. It seems like the moms report, I don't think it's just my house, but other moms report that, well, you know, he's cranky because he hasn't been fed, and that we kind of look for that correlation. And a lot of times the dads kind of miss it. How can we help the dads to notice those EOs and those MOs when our kids have been set up to not be in their most happiest selves?
I think that's a difficult one. I think it's about you're just going to have to educate, I think, and maybe like point it out. Say, look at this pattern that happens, or point it out. I find it helpful to think about my own behavior and notice it in myself, and that makes me appreciate it better in other people. One of the other things is to be aware is that a motivating operation can also involve like just general stimulation in the environment. So if you're bored, boredom is another one that can affect our kids a lot. And not just boredom, but maybe we see with certain kids who engage in the stereotypical behavior, you know, like the stimming kind of stuff, is that at the beginning of their program, before they know how to play or before they know how to interact with other people, that they're not getting the same kind of interaction with their environment as like kids who are later on in their program, and that can mean that they have to get the stimulation from somewhere. So that's why they potentially engage in those behaviors.
Okay, so being aware of it, educating ourselves, because I don't think that occurred to me either. So we can try to head it off at the pass, or be aware when it's there and change how we interact.
Exactly, because if you kind of look for those variables whenever your kid's having a meltdown, it can help you figure out what to do or how you need to do it differently.
And we've talked before on the show that whenever, you know, there's tantrums, which is one thing, and we're always looking for the function of the behavior for the tantrum, but when it's full-on meltdown, we really need to be looking at what the EOs and the MOs are.
It is quite likely that if your child's having an actual meltdown, major meltdown, that there's probably some motivating variables, setting events kind of going on as well.
Absolutely.
As the usual trigger, and then obviously the history of getting what they want from that behavior.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those things just escalate everything. So, you know, just like myself, if something that normally annoys me or is stressful, if I'm really tired or hungry, or you know, have already had a bunch of difficult interactions in my day, that sets me up to way overreact to something that I normally would have a negative reaction to, but I'll just have a complete meltdown about.
Yeah, well, and one of the things that I talk about for me for a meltdown, I have a wheat allergy. And if I somehow have a transgression where somebody cooked something and I ate it, or I was at a restaurant, I now, at the ripe age that I'm at, can recognize it now and go, ooh, something is not right, I'm feeling it. But when I will tell you, up until probably I was 30, I would just be inconsolable. Inconsolable and not know why, because the allergy in my body, I didn't have coping skills when it would happen. So wide range of things that could be EO and MO. Everything under the sun, from a flickering light bulb could be something that could make it harder for somebody, to being tired, being hungry, being cold, being hot, having
not enough attention through the day from someone who normally gives you attention, being bored, not enough stimulation, or being overstimulated. We all know, I definitely have meltdowns sometimes because I feel like people have been like, Evelyn all day, and then I go home and my brother will be like, ask me a simple question, like, you can't take it anymore. So, overstimulation as well can change how you react to things.
All right. So that's EOs for things that set our kids up for challenging behavior.
So, EO is establishing operation, and if you think about the word establishing, it's like establishing a motivating kind of variable. It's like setting you up to react more strongly to something than you normally would, or to be more likely to engage in certain behaviors in relation to whatever it is that's going on.
Okay, great.